This is Paul McGann, and you're listening to the Five-ish Fangirls podcast.
Five-ish Fangirls, I love you, and I'm one of the five-ish. In fact, I'm the biggest one of the five-ish. I am the Sixth Doctor Colin Baker, and I wish you all well. Have fun.
The tangents and squeak continue all the way to episode number 19 of the Five-ish Fangirls podcast. I just flew home from Florida. Boy, are my arms tired. Welcome, everyone, to this week's episode of the Five-ish Fangirls podcast. So glad you could join us this week. Let's start off like we always do by going around the virtual table and see who has joined us this week.
Hi, this is Brittany from Taos.
This is Chrissy in Salt Lake City.
Mitch in Kitchener, Ontario.
And I am Rachel, back in Indianapolis, Indiana. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
So glad almost everyone could make it. Unfortunately, Holly could not join us this week, but she sends her love and hopes she shall join us next week. So, obviously,
Holly not being here kind of threw me. I keep expecting her to be between me and Chrissy.
we keep each other on our toes.
Yes, we do.
Here. Like, wait, I'm next.
Yeah. Obviously, we missed a week, but we did warn with the last episode that may happen, and that is all my fault, but we will find out exactly why it's my fault later in the episode. But we do have several weeks of news to get caught up on, so let's jump straight in with news.
Okay, so this first one is, you gotta hang with me here, so I'll explain this. But, it was 2 Thursdays ago, Spoiler TV reported that Once Upon a Time episode 4.8, Smash the Mirror, will be a 2-hour-long special episode, and that and they also had sorry, I just lost my train of thought, even though it's sitting right in front of me. Then they also had the rest of the episode titles revealed for the remainder of this first half of season 4, which is funny because Adam Horowitz, who is the executive producer, he tweeted out episode 11's title yesterday, and it was like, well, we already knew this. But anyway, so and this kind of dovetails into another bit of news that TV Line is reporting that ABC, the network, actually ordered a whole bunch of other, an extra episode from a whole bunch of other shows like Castle, and what else is there? Grey's Anatomy, and a couple others that I don't watch. Well, I don't watch Grey's Anatomy anyway, but that's a popular one. So anyway, what this means is, and Adam Horowitz was on Twitter on the 23rd, just kind of clarifying that because episode 8 is going to be 2 hours long rather than an hour long, usually that doesn't mean that they're going to shorten or elongate the season at all. It just means that ABC wanted an extra episode, so what they've chosen to do is lengthen episode 8 and then and just make that one big episode. So there will still be 22 episodes in the entire season when all is said and done. So from here on out, tonight was episode 6, Family Business, which I just watched. I will not spoil, but it was good. And then next week is episode 7, and then episode 8 is the weekend before American Thanksgiving, and it seems like they're going to be taking a break from this. And this is another thing Adam confirmed, that the winter finale is going to be on December 14th. So we've kind of got our stuff mapped out for the rest of this half season, and they did release a synopsis for episode 8 early when all this news was coming out, which I was kind of like, at the time, we're like, we hadn't even seen 6 and 7, but whatever. I'm not in charge, thankfully. But I did read the synopsis, and I kind of felt like it spoiled a little too much. I mean, I kind of seek out these spoilers, but that's just me. I don't expect anybody else to do that. So I kind of expected something like this to be happening, but I was like, wow, that, before those other 2 episodes aired. So Anyway, bottom line is we're getting some extra Once Upon a Time and some extra Castle. I am not going to complain about this at all. So more than we thought we were getting. So it's like it's like a little mini movie in the middle of the season. So and I guess we'll find out why they decided to do it with episode 8, and not like, cause we were talking about this pre-show, and Mitch, you were saying you're asking
Why not
why do it?
Why episode 8 and not the mid-series finale or whatever?
Which I'm kind of wondering that too, but now I'm kind of nervous. Just the way things have been going. They've been going so well, and I'm waiting for that other shoe to drop when everything goes to hell and back. I will still keep watching, but it'll be angsty, I'm sure.
Yep.
That's all I'm going to say about that.
Well, continuing on with ABC shows.
Kind of appropriate. Mid-season. Mid-season.
Yeah. Agent Carter, which is going to premiere in January. Its series premiere synopsis has been released. It's 1946, and peace has dealt Peggy a serious blow as she finds herself marginalized when the men return home from fighting abroad. Sorry. Working for the covert SSR, which stands for Strategic Scientific Resolve, Peggy finds herself stuck doing administrative work, fun, when she would rather be back out in the field, putting her vast skills into play and taking down the bad guys. But she's also trying to navigate life as a single woman in America in the wake of losing the love of her life, Steve Rogers, otherwise known as Captain America. When old acquaintance Howard Stark, who is being played by Dominic Cooper, who is replacing his role from Captain America the First Avenger, finds himself being framed for unleashing his deadliest weapons to anyone willing to pony up the cash, he contacts Peggy, the only person he can trust, to track down those responsible dispose of the weapons and clear his name. He empowers his butler Edwin Jarvis, who's being played by James Darcy, to be at her beck and call when needed to help assist her as she investigates and tracks down those responsible for releasing these weapons of mass destruction. But Jarvis, who's a creature of habit and sticks to a rigid daily routine, is going to have to make some major life changes if he's going to be able to keep up with Peggy. If caught going on these secret missions for Stark, Peggy would be targeted as a traitor and spend the rest of her days in prison or worse. And as she delves deeper into her investigations, she may find that those she works for are not who they seem, and she might even begin to question whether Stark is as innocent as he claims. Dun dun dun. Dun dun dun. Which sounds very intriguing. And also, we'll have a link but there's a TV promo spot for the show, which I actually haven't watched yet.
Oh, what is also interesting is that Haley Atwell, who plays Peggy Carter, has been tweeting a lot about the on-set injuries she's been causing to stuntmen and actors and.
Oh, do you?
That is great. I've seen that. I just sit there and I laugh about this. I'm like, oh yeah, we're gonna keep this one
on that front.
Nice.
Her Twitter feed is about as entertaining as Georgina Haig's, which is pretty entertaining. That is a compliment.
Mm-hmm. I feel bad that I don't follow her. I should go follow her.
You should.
Looking forward to seeing Agent Carter. Ugh. Even if it does mean that Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. will be on hiatus.
Yeah. Well, that's why they have Agent Carter. So you don't. So, I mean, you'll miss Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. with it being gone, but you have something to watch in the meantime.
That's true. So, speaking of Marvel, there was a Marvel Event Live blog with Kevin Feige, Joss Whedon, Robert Downey Jr., and Chris Evans. and along with those guys, whenever they get together, it's just madness. So lots of announcements. Some stuff we already knew, but they were confirming also a lot of things, like actual movie titles, complete movie titles, along with release dates. So have your calendar ready, get a pencil. So May 6th, 2016, we're getting Captain America 3. The official title is Captain America 3 Civil War. November 4th, 2016, we're getting Doctor Strange. They've confirmed as being directed by Scott Derrickson, but they've still not announced any casting. Somebody did ask why they didn't announce any casting, and Feige and Whedon said if we had something to confirm, we would have announced. So all those rumors that you're seeing about who's playing Doctor Strange at this point are rumors still, although some seem to have more legs than others, and the ones that are growing stronger legs, I'm crossing my fingers for. Guardians of the Galaxy 2 has been moved from July of 2017 to May 5th of 2017. And then Thor 3, and I cannot pronounce that because I'm short. Ragnarok. Because my Norse is really rusty. Is going.
I have Scandinavian blood.
Yeah, there you go.
That means nothing, but but I still claim it.
Oh, Thor 3 is coming out July 28th, 2017. Black Panther will be coming out November 3rd, 2017. So yes, you counted that right. We're getting 3 Marvel movies in 2017. And Chadwick Boseman has been cast as Black Panther. The third Avengers movie, which is going to be known as The Avengers Infinity War, will be a 2-parter, released May 4th, 2018 and May 3rd, 2019. And we're getting a Captain Marvel movie, which is slated for July 6th, 2018. And Kevin Feige confirmed that this will be Carol Danvers' version of Captain Marvel. I have no idea what that means. And then November 2nd, 2018, we're getting Marvel Inhumans.
So that means that Infinity War is going to be split, and there's going to be 2 movies between Part 1 and Part 2, which I find very intriguing.
Yeah.
That they would do it that way.
Curious why they need it to be 2 movies.
Yeah. So, but if you're keeping tally, that is what 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 movies.
Basically, Marvel's got you covered to the end of the decade, so
pretty much. So, and some of these I know more about than others. I don't really know anything about Captain Marvel. The Inhumans thing, I don't really know a lot about. But if you've been watching Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., there are some people thinking that the current storyline. Part of the current storyline in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is feeding into the potential Inhumans story. So we will see that if that is the case. But with 2018 being a long ways away, who knows at this point. But yeah, we're getting Age of Ultron next year, Captain America 3 the year after that, and Doctor Strange. So unless I'm mistaken, we're only getting 1 Marvel movie next year?
Yeah, it's
Age of Ultron?
Yeah, just Age of Ultron.
Yeah.
Although they did that with the first Avengers movie.
That is true.
That was the only one during 2012.
Yeah, that is true.
So, but they're speeding it up.
Yep. But speaking of Age of Ultron, if you saw, Hydra decided to release the trailer that was supposed to premiere during last week's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. After Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. aired not last week, but the week before that, and they made an announcement like 2 days later. The trailer was out there for all the world to see, and
it leaked, and it was like on blurry, phone cams and stuff, and they were trying to take it down. It kept popping back up, so they just said, "Oh, screw it, we'll just release it." So they did.
But they blamed it on Hydra.
That little extra scene during Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Which I haven't seen yet, so...
Okay, I will not tell you involved then.
Don't say anything. I have not seen it yet.
But our listeners probably know what it is, and it is glorious to behold.
Yeah, but I know personally, and I'm pretty sure that you ladies, when you saw it too, that our jaws collectively fell to the ground. Like,
Yep.
really? It's good.
I love the running joke that now we know why Disney bought Marvel, so they could have that Pinocchio song in there without paying for the rights.
I was like, I remember like that's not it, is it? So I watched it again, like it totally is.
Yep.
And then I went to go my iPod and put my music on. I'm like, it really is. So
have you guys found how it should have ended their version of the trailer?
No, not yet.
They keep going back and putting in other Disney movie or Disney songs, and make it that creepy, slowed down, deep voice sort of thing. They're so funny. Just search how it should have ended Age of Ultron trailer on YouTube. You will find it.
I have it saved. I just haven't had a chance to go watch it yet. Like, it just should be creepy and awesome at the same time.
Well, I've seen the Age of Ultron trailer set to Everybody Wants to Rule the World and My Heart Will Go On.
I saw the My Heart Will Go On one. I was like, I think that song's good for something, right?
Yeah. That's the joy of getting trailers this far out, is people have time to play with them.
And boy, do they play with them.
Yeah, it makes it very entertaining. So, and speaking of Age of Ultron, still, in a recent interview, Idris Elba, revealed that both he and Tom Hiddleston will make an appearance in Age of Ultron. And if you don't know, Idris plays Heimdall, the gatekeeper of the Bifrost, essentially. And then obviously Tom Hiddleston plays Loki. But Idris was he'd apparently been doing some DJ work on the side in Isba, Spain, during the summer, which, if you've been paying attention to filming, they were filming part of Age of Ultron in that same area back in August. So he said, and I'm doing a scene with Chris Hemsworth and Tom Hiddleston, and they're like whispering, "Aren't you meant to be in Ibiza?" Like, what are you doing here? You're supposed to be doing something else. So, how exactly those two will play into Age of Ultron, I don't know, but that should be interesting. So
I can only... Oh, sorry.
Oh, no.
I was going to say, I can only imagine that we're going to get scenes on Asgard, which is always nice. I love how they do Asgard.
That is true. That is very true. So
I'm like, you're like kind of curious of what do they have to do. Hopefully it's more, because it kind of sounds like it's a cameo type thing.
Yeah.
I hope it's a little more, because I like both of those actors and the characters that they do. So
yeah. Because I mean, if we Heimdall's one thing, Loki's another. Because I mean, if you saw Thor, the last Thor movie, the way it ended with Loki is, we know he's alive, but Thor doesn't necessarily know he's alive. And we're not getting another Thor movie until 2017, so it's like, how's this going to play out with Loki?
yeah.
They need to acknowledge it in some way.
Yes. Or something.
I'm sure they will. Avengers. Marvel is really good at doing all this. So yes. I'm sure they're...
Dropping characters in there and not seeing them again for a while is sometimes their thing. So, and telegraphing things. So, as we were saying pre-recording, that Marvel likes to play the long game. So,
and they are very good at it.
Yeah.
Yes, they are.
So now we're just waiting till next summer for Age of Ultron. Tide us over.
Man, whoever said being a fangirl is easy. All this
Has anyone ever said that? Like, ever?
Yeah, if you think being a fangirl is easy, you're not doing it right.
If you're not collapsed on a puddle of feels on the floor, what are you doing?
Yeah,
Exactly.
you're like a Cyberman or something.
Now, whether those feels are crying feels or jumping up and down, excited beyond all reason feels, now that's up to you.
Both of them can happen at the same time.
Yeah.
Hey, I make it work.
Yeah.
Me too, somehow.
Infinity War Part 2 will be coming out on my birthday,
Nice.
which is good in one way, but on the other hand, it's my 29th birthday, which is kind of like, I don't want to think that far ahead just yet. Thank you very much.
Hey, I'm 29 right now, honey.
I know, but
Y'all are babies
shut up.
compared to me. Y'all are children. Anyway.
It comes out a month before my 29th birthday.
Think of it as a birthday present.
I don't want to think about how old I'll be that year. But now I guess everyone can do the math and figure it out. I don't care what you guys think. I know how old I am.
Oh, well, they can do the math on how old I am now,
Yeah.
and Brittany.
You're the same age as my brother.
Anyway.
Moving on.
Yeah. One last little piece of news. The trailers dropping left and right for stuff. So we have a full trailer for the final trailer for Mockingjay Part 1, which if you are a huge Hunger Games fan, I'm sure eating it up. Personally, there's not really a whole lot in there that we haven't seen in the other teaser trailers up to this point. So, a few shots that I haven't seen before, but for the most part, it's like we're, what, three weeks away from it coming out, so...
Yeah.
At this point, it's
down to the wire.
Yeah, at this point, go buy your tickets and go give them your money. So, that is it for news. We don't have any feedback this week, so we'll jump straight into me talking. So, sit back and relax and sit right here. Let me sit right back and hear a tale of a non-fateful trip. To quote Gilligan's Island. As I said in the last episode when it mentioned that we may or may not be missing a week, it was because I'd be going on vacation. And more specifically, I was going on a cruise. And if you know anything about me, you know I'm a huge Disney fan. So if I'm going to go on a cruise, it's going to be a Disney cruise. So this was actually my second cruise with Disney on a different ship than previously, but it was myself and my husband's parents, henceforth known as Chauncey is my husband and Terry and Tweeter are his parents. His mom's name isn't actually Tweeter, we just call her Tweeter. That's much easier. And it was their first cruise of any kind. They'd never been on a vacation like this before. The whole idea of this vacation was my husband just turned 30. Sorry, honey, for putting that out there, but everybody knows anyway. And he's as big a Disney fanatic as I am, but he's also a huge fan of Halloween. It is his absolute favorite holiday in the entire world. So when we were looking at, how, turning 30, it's a big deal. How can we celebrate it? We want to make it something, special. And we'd taken a cruise 2 years ago, and while we were on board, we had just booked another cruise on board because they give you some perks if you book another cruise while on the ship. So we booked, but we knew the date. So we were looking at, picking an actual date, and his parents were all like, well, we haven't been on a really nice vacation in a while, so like, hey, come along. So we ended up sailing last week, so we were sailing over Halloween, which was very cool. We were on the Disney Fantasy. Disney's got 4 ships. The Magic and the Wonder are 2 older ships. They're slightly smaller. And then the Dream and the Fantasy are the 2 newer ships, and those 2, the Fantasy is the newest. It's only a couple of years old, but they're slightly larger ships. They have more staterooms and more stuff to do and all that fun stuff. But before the cruise, we flew to Florida the day before. We had to set sail, which is always highly recommended because you just never know. A lot of people will fly in the day that they're supposed to sail out, but you just never know with weather or plane malfunction or something. So you always want to try and fly in the day beforehand. But we flew in early enough that we were able to go to Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween Party, which is a hard-ticketed event that takes place in the Magic Kingdom at Walt Disney World, which my husband and I had done the Not So Scary several years ago, right after we first got married. And if you're a fan of Halloween or you're a fan of Disney, it is well worth the price of admission to do these events. I know some people are like, it's kind of a lot of money, and you're only in the park for so many hours, because the park will close and reopen for people for just those parties. But it's one of the few times that adults can wear costumes into a Disney park, which is, you see little kids running around with their little pirate outfit or Buzz Lightyear, and the girls in the princess dresses, but they don't allow adults to dress up outside of the Halloween party and or the Run Disney events. A lot of people dress in costume for the half marathon and all that. So since it was my husband's birthday and he loves Halloween, we decided we would do the Halloween party, and I will post pictures once get them from my mother-in-law, but we decided to do a group costume, and we decided to go as tacky tourists.
That is perfect.
Yes, so we stripes with plaid and gaudy Hawaiian shirts and the fanny pack, you name it, we wore it. And it was actually funny because I had on jean shorts, but they had holes in them, and I had a Mickey Mouse t-shirt and a Hawaiian print parrot shirt on top, and my mouse ears, and a fanny pack. Yes, I own a fanny pack. And it was funny enough because, if people saw a couple of times, it was just me, I'd, gone to the bathroom or whatever, and the costume made more sense with the 4 of us, but it was when it was just me, a couple of people thought I was the genie from Aladdin. When he's got the vacation gear on at the end, when he's all like, "I'm free, I'm on vacation." I was like, well, that's not what I was intending.
You know what?
But
Go take it and run with it.
Yeah. But as a group, people got it. At least the cast members did. The people working there, we got several weird looks from other guests. Especially when we were waiting for the bus at our hotel to get to the park. There were several people that looked at us like, did you get dressed in the dark? Or did your luggage get lost? Or what? I was like, okay, either you obviously don't know about the Halloween party or you're just weird. I don't know.
But I didn't even realize it is Halloween.
Yeah, I guess. But we didn't care. I was like, we're never going to see these people again, so it doesn't matter. But I love Disney, obviously, all the time, but there's something about major holidays. They do Halloween and Christmas really, really, really well, and this is no exception. They offer character meet and greets, and all the characters are dressed up in their Halloween outfits. Sometimes they'll bring in characters you don't normally see. If you were to go to the parks on a regular day, like they brought in like the Seven Dwarves as a group, you never see them during regular park time. Jack and Sally from The Nightmare Before Christmas, you don't see them during the day, during a regular day. And then obviously your normal characters, Mickey and all that, but they're in a different outfit than what they would you'd normally see them in. So that's cool if you're a character person. The parade is awesome. The music will get in your head and it will stay there for weeks. I have the soundtrack and I've been listening to it like the entire month of October. So I had it stuck in my head even before we got there, but then even afterwards I'm like, boot to you. I think I'm still singing it in my head too, and it's November. But the fireworks are... I mean, Disney does fireworks really well to begin with, but I think that the Halloween fireworks are some of the best ones that Disney does. They're just, I mean, I'm not a princess person at all. I think the princesses are awesome, and I get that little girls love them, but I am not a princess person at all. So with Halloween, the focus is more on the villains, which is awesome. The fireworks are all with the villains. There is no good guy to come save the day at all, or Tinkerbell coming to save the day like she does with some of the other fireworks. We've got video. I'll post some video if you want to see, or you can just go on YouTube and find somebody else's video if you're really impatient, don't want to wait for me. But the fireworks are just awesome, and they do projections on the castle with the funny colors and everything, and the character voices and all that. So it's just really, really cool. And then the parade is really fun as well. They have the Headless Horseman starts the parade, so he comes barreling down the street on his horse and carrying his flaming pumpkin head, and it's just cool.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
I want to see that.
Yeah,
I would have loved to see that.
Yeah. Apparently, way back in the day when they first started doing it, that his barreling was more at a higher speed. He doesn't quite go as fast now. One, because I think it's a safety thing, and two, so people can get pictures. But it's still really cool because they play like Ride of the Valkyrie in the background, so it's like dun 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 dun, and you got this guy with the cape and there's no head, and he's got his arm up in the air with a pumpkin and it's glowing, and he's on this big huge horse, and he's just trotting down the street, and he goes from side to side, and it's very cool to see. So, if that's something that you want to like try to get a picture of, you got to be quick. My poor mother-in-law was trying to photograph everything. I'm like, you're going to need to be quick on the trigger, because even though he's not going that fast, it's still fast enough. And of course they also do trick-or-treating. We got bags to go trick-or-treating with, and they got candy stations just all over the park, and the cast members, they're not stingy. They have these big barrels of just candy, and it's name brand stuff. You're not getting like the cheap stuff. You're getting like little Snickers bars and bags of Skittles and all this. And we figured out that there'd be a station where there'd be like two cast members side by side. We'd go through to one and then go through again and go to the other one. So they don't care. You could go through as many times as you want and fill up that bag. They don't care. But there were a couple of times where we had to like choose a path, and we're like, well, that person's got bigger hands, so we're gonna go with that person. So we should, in theory, get more candy because their hands are bigger. Because they're not stingy. They reach down there and get a handful and drop it in your bag, and we're still eating it. It's been over a week, and we still have candy left over. So, I don't know if we would eat our weight in candy, but still, it's a lot of candy. And then they do have some of the rides are open, which is kind of nice because you can, if in between trick or treating and the parade and the fireworks and all that, if you want to. The headliners are usually open, but one of the biggest things was and this actually made headlines recent in the last 24 hours or so. The Seven Dwarfs Mine Train, which recently caught on fire, is the newest attraction to open in the Magic Kingdom, and it's a roller coaster ride. It's all themed with the Seven Dwarfs from Snow White. And it's been insanely popular since it opened. I mean, we're talking hours and hour long waits, bordering on, matching the wait times for Anna and Elsa. Which, we're not going to get into that. But it was open during the party. We hit a few attractions, mostly our favorites, Haunted Mansion, Pirates, that sort of thing. But we'd seen the fireworks, and we watched the parade, and we still had like 45 minutes before the party was officially over. So we decided to jump in line for the mine train, which was, they said it was a 45-minute wait. We probably waited about that. It was probably pretty accurate, about 45 minutes. It's a short ride, so we didn't really stand for a whole lot. The line was slow moving, but it was moving. Awesome. Awesome attraction. It's you ride in mine cars, and they take you through the dwarves' mine. But these mine cars, the ride vehicle and the train, they're connected, but then they're not locked into the train. So as they go around curves and stuff, they swing back and forth. And some people are like, well, you kind of feel it, but it's not like crazy swinging. But you get somebody like my husband's size in the car with you can get some leverage, and we got some serious swinging action side to side, which was, I think, made it a whole lot better. So, if you're someone that's on the lighter side, grab somebody that's larger and have them shake their booty for you and get that thing going, because it's a lot of fun. You go through the mine and you see the dwarves, mining for their gems, and they're singing the song, and the animatronics are just there. Some of the most state-of-the-art that they have nowadays. They're very photorealistic with this projection that they can do, so it makes the faces look really, really real, and the movements are really fluid. So, very cool. But by the time that we were done with that, the party was over, so we had to hightail it out of the park. But it was definitely worth the 45-minute wait. I don't think I'd wait for it again with that kind of length now that I've been on it. But for a first-time experience, it was definitely worth the wait. I don't think I would wait anything longer than that. Maybe an hour. But, that's obviously a personal thing. But that was the end of the evening for the Halloween party. And then the next day, we were picked up by a Disney bus to take us out to Port Canaveral, which is a major hub for a lot of cruise lines. A lot of cruise lines sail out of there, and it's across the way from NASA. So that was kind of cool. You could see the ships on one side, you know, if you looked one way out the window and if you looked the other way across the water, you could see the giant building, and it said NASA on the side. It's got the logo. So I went there once as a kid. But if you're a space nerd, that's a cool thing to see. But we got checked in, got our keys, and got on the ship. And the fantasy is themed. But all the ships are supposed to give you the feeling of what cruising used to be back in the day. But the fantasy itself is themed around the Art Deco era, which is absolutely gorgeous. They have this beautiful chandelier hanging in the main lobby, and all the railing and all the scroll work is just, it's absolutely gorgeous. And I'll post pictures on the blog and all that. You can see some pictures, but it was just, you know, my husband and I had done this before, so we knew what to expect, but my in-laws had no idea what to expect. As much as I tried to explain things to them as best I could, because we didn't want them going into it completely blind. But until you really experience it and get the context, it doesn't. I don't think it quite sinks in. But we had. We got settled into our staterooms and all that, and did some exploring. And I had to go pick up tickets for. They have characters on the ship, so again, if you're a character person, the cruises are actually kind of a good way to do characters if you've got little kids that love meeting characters, because it's a set number of people. So you're not having to worry about a large influx, because there's only so many people on the ship, so there can only be so many people in line. But some characters are more popular than others, and in this case, they had what they called the Princess Grand Gathering, where they have multiple princesses at once, making an appearance at once. And you had to get a ticket for it, and they were free. You just had to make sure you go get a ticket for it. And then the other meet and greet I needed to get a ticket for, because they're so insanely popular, is Anna and Elsa. They were on board, and I got my ticket, which was good, because I was like, this is so much easier than waiting in the 5-hour line for Anna and Elsa at the Magic Kingdom. So I got my tickets for that. But then we had to get, they did the sailing away party, which they do out on the pool deck. You'll find with the ships that most of the action takes place on the deck with the pool. And in this case, it was deck 11, which is where the two family pools are, and the adult pool, or where the kids clubs are. That's usually where you're going to find the largest influx of people. And they do a little stage show with Mickey and Minnie and pals, and they sing and dance as you're pulling out of port, and it's all fun. And they sound the horn, which is always cool. The newer ships have more advanced horns, so that they can do 7 different tones, and they're all songs, Disney songs. The one you hear most often is the first line of When You Wish Upon a Star, but the horn's also capable of the second line of When You Wish Upon a Star, Be Our Guest, the High Diddly Dee, An Actor's Life for Me for Pinocchio, Yo Ho, yeah, Pirate's Life for Me, It's a Small World. I'm blanking on the others. Again, YouTube.
It's quite the variety.
It is. And I've heard stories of if Disney ships happen to pass each other out in the ocean, that they will honk their horns at each other. Until, I guess, one crowd is loud enough that they call it, they win, I guess. But that was always very, and they always did all 7 at noon. At least when we were out at sea, they would all, because they were like, well, we know people want to record them, so that they'd always sound them at least once a day, so people could get their cameras out and try to record the sound. Actually, the song, the horn from with the song from Pirates of the Caribbean is my alarm on my cell phone. So that's always a good way to wake up if I have to get up to an alarm. But we had dinner, and one of the fun things about Disney and dining on the Disney cruise ships is they have 3 main dining rooms, and they're all themed differently depending on the ship. But there's three main dining rooms, and what they do is they put you on a dining rotation. So depending on how long your cruise is, in this case it was 7 nights, with 3 dining rooms. 2 of them we ate in twice, and then 1 of them we ate in 3 times. And then you go from a different restaurant each night. But what they do is you're assigned a head waiter and an assistant waiter, and they follow you, so that you get the same waiters every single night, so they get to know you, and they get to know, if you like your coffee with cream but no sugar, they won't bring you sugar because they know you're not going to use it. Or if they know you have a food preference, they can, when they give you the menu, they can recommend stuff that they think that you would enjoy, which was very cool. We got to know our wait staff really well by the end. They said that our head waiter, her name was Lumi. Actually, her name was like Lumi La, but she's like, call me Lumi because it's easier. And then our assistant server was Diogo. Lumi's from India and Diogo's from Portugal. But by the time we got to the end, and we're all like, oh, we're going to get off, and you're going to get a new family, and you're going to forget all about us. And Lumi is all like, no, I'll remember you for at least 2 weeks.
Nice.
Oh.
We made at least a little impression,
Well,
I think.
at least she was honest.
Yes. But it was nice to actually, we get to talk to them and learn a little bit about them, and they get to learn about us. And occasionally we'd see them in some of the other dining areas, because if you're not a fan of sitting down to, I don't want to say a formal meal, but I mean it's not Applebee's. It's not it's nicer than that. I mean, but it's not like super pretentious fancy, because I don't like that. I mean, I've been to some places where the food is just all like, do you think I'm like the Queen of England, the way this menu? What is this? But there was always at least something on the menu that was something that I would enjoy, and we all found stuff that we enjoyed. And the other great thing is, all of those meals are included. So, there were some nights where my husband was like, I'm going to get 2 appetizers and 2 entrees. And you could. Or if you ordered something and you decided you didn't like it, they would bring you something else, and you didn't have to pay for it. It was already paid for. Or if you're like, I'm just going to have 2 entrees or 2 appetizers and dessert for my meal, you could do that, which was very cool. So, you could pick and choose as little or as much as you wanted. And there were times where one of us couldn't decide between 2 entrees. They brought us both, just so we could try both and see which one we like better. So, and
That is awesome.
yeah, and it is always good food. I mean, I had steak, I had pasta, I had chicken, I had lamb. My husband had lobster. He had escargot. He tried escargot for the first time on this cruise, which I thought he was crazy. He didn't hate it. He said he probably wouldn't eat it
sounds
again.
Like something you should try at least once in your life, just for the experience.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, I tried it once.
Yeah, no.
Only once.
Yeah.
which is perfectly fine. I mean, but feel like you should at least try it. If you don't like
Yeah.
it, but
And then if you don't like it, you don't have to have it again.
Well, that's true. Well, he said that they tasted kind of, they had it in this garlic butter sauce. He's like, well, they kind of tasted like garlicky mushrooms. I'm like, well, I don't like mushrooms either, so that's not going to happen either. But you know, you eat like kings, or you can eat as not like kings. I mean, if you want just a plain steak and a baked potato, you can do that too, or just plain chicken breast with some vegetables, you can do that too. They always have those as options. And the desserts, don't get me started on desserts. We took photos of pretty much everything we ate. So be forewarned when I post some of those, but you may get hungry.
I'm getting hungry listening to it.
Yeah.
Even the baked potato and steak, because I love that stuff.
Oh. And then, you know, during the day, you've got your options for breakfast and lunch as well. You know, you could do, at least one of the dining rooms is open during the day for breakfast and lunch. They're not quite as highbrow or as elaborate as dinner is. And then there's the buffet. They have a buffet that is always available for breakfast and lunch as well. I hardly ever ate lunch. I usually found myself not hungry. I'd eat breakfast, and I'd have a decent breakfast. You know, I'd have pancakes and bacon and eggs and, you know, pastries, and, you know, they had like deli meats and cheeses to go, you know, and vegetables to go through breakfast as well. So it's like, I never really had lunch because I was usually not hungry for lunch. Which, you know, you don't really burn off a lot of calories if the minute you finish lunch you get put on your swimsuit and go lounge in the pool, so too.
It does take energy to sit in the sun, though.
Well, yes, that is true. But my father-in-law, it was so funny just leading up to this. He was all like, because they have room service too. And room service is available 24 hours a day, the entire length of the cruise. He was like, I'm gonna order me a hamburger at like 1 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, Terry, you're not going to be hungry for a hamburger at 1 o'clock in the morning. And he never was. He never got his midnight hamburger because he was never hungry for it.
Well, he had the intentions.
Yes. Yeah.
So when you go on vacation, you're like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. You only get like maybe to a third of it.
Yeah. That's a thread that runs through this entire thing. You just can't do it all. And you can't eat it all either.
And that's why you go multiple times.
Exactly. So it's like, oh, I didn't get to eat that. Well, I'll just have to go again so I can eat it next time. It's funny because it's true. Yeah, so we ate a lot. Although, surprisingly enough, none of us really seemed to gain a lot of weight. I think that's because we did a lot of walking because we weren't willing to wait for the elevator. So it was a lot of up and down the stairs. Which is what happened on our last cruise. My husband didn't gain any weight on our last cruise because we took the stairs all the time because we weren't willing to wait for the elevator.
And that's how you do it.
Exactly. So if you're capable of taking the stairs, do it. Your waistline will thank you later. But on top of the food, a lot of it was just, enjoying the ship. We spent a lot of time in the adult pool area, which was set in towards the back, on the same deck as the family pool, but it was set back enough you really couldn't hear, the kids running around and screaming and splashing and all that. And it was always so quiet. The pool, it's a bit on the small side, but we usually couldn't find, we didn't have a problem finding a spot to soak, or if the pool started to fill up, we'd go to the hot tub, which the hot tub is off to the side, and it's just a glass window, right in front of you, and it's pushed up against the window so you can see out, but then the floor of the hot tub, or at least part of the floor of the hot tub, is clear as well, so you can see down into the water, although there's
Oh, wow.
there's stuff below you too. I mean, it's open for several decks below you, and then there's like a lifeboat tethered to the side of the ship, but then you can kind of see down into the water, which freaked my mother-in-law out the first time we got on the hot tub. She's like, "Are we gonna fall?" I'm like, "No, you're fine." The glass is like 6 inches thick. I'm like, "I think you're fine." But yeah, we spent most of our time just relaxing at the adult area. Although we did ride the aqueduct a couple times, which the aqueduct is the only water coaster at sea. It's a long slide tube that starts at the top of near one of the funnels and goes out over the side of the ship and back around and down and around the other funnel and then down to the bottom. But you ride a tube, and it's got the fast jets and then the kind of a lift hill that takes you up to get to speed and all that. So we did ride that a couple times, which was lots of fun. Be prepared, though, to get water in your face. Lots of water in your face. It's very splashy. But that, I was wrinkly a lot. I had the pruny fingers and toes from being in the water quite a bit. And then there's just stuff to do around the ship. They've got they've got shopping. Obviously, you've got the characters. They've got the spots for the kids clubs, which I don't have children, so I can't really say a whole lot about the kids areas. But they have a nursery for the 3 and unders. And then they have a club for the 3 to 6, 7-year-olds ish, and then like 7 to 12, and then the teens and tweens have their own area. And it, except for the nursery, that's all included. So you can just you can drop your kid off. If they're old enough, they can check themselves in. And they have games, and they'll feed them, and they have character appearances, and they've got things like, Xbox for them to play on them. They'll do crafts and science experiments, and they do a sleepover depending on the itinerary. Sometimes they'll have a sleepover, and the kids get to make friends with kids their own age, which is really cool. And some of them are really cool theme. One of the other ships, the Magic, they just redesigned the kids area, and one of them is now themed to, it's a Marvel Academy, and I'm kind of jealous I'm not young enough to go play in it. But and then there's several lounges and bars that you can hang out at if you're old enough. Although the adult area, the adult club area, which in this particular ship was on deck 4 towards the rear, the overall area is called Europa, and it contains several different bars with different themes. And during the day, it's actually open to families, and then after like 9 o'clock, it becomes 18 and over, and then you have to be 21 to drink. But we went to, there's an open bar, which was themed to like old world Venice. It had like the masks hanging on the wall, and there was an old moped with sidecar parked there, so you could sit there and photo op. And then there's a sports bar, O'Gill's, which we frequented a couple of times. We watched a World Series. We watched Game 7 inside O'Gill's, which it wasn't really full, but it was full enough, and like 95% of the people in O'Gill's were cheering for the Royals, and there were like 2 Giants fans.
Oh.
So 2 people left after Game 7 very happy, and the rest of us kind of walked out with our tails between our legs. So not that I'm
On that note, one of the things about if in a world without traveling the vortex.
Yes.
I would not care about that at all.
I know. I was like, I kept
I'm-
saying,
because of traveling vortex, I was kind of invested.
I know. I was kind of the same way.
Right?
I'm like, normally I
I
don't like
was-
baseball.
I was
But-
invested until the Cardinals lost. 'Cause
Yeah.
my mom likes the Cardinals,
Yeah.
and I don't care one way or the other about baseball. But my mom, anyone from any team from St. Louis, my mom cheers for because she likes the Rams. So that's the only thing. But in the World Series, I really didn't care one way or the other. Although I
Yeah.
was sort of cheering for Kansas City because of the boys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Me too. I was like, moral support for friends who are genuine fans.
Yeah, but then I have other friends who are Giants fans, so I'm just kind of like, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. Normally we couldn't give two, we wouldn't blink an eye at baseball. But I was like, I'm giving moral support to friends who are actual fans. And then my husband's over here like, I'm rooting for the Giants because that's Metallica's favorite baseball team.
I guess I could root for San Francisco since I do like the 49ers.
Yeah. It's like my husband normally doesn't care about sports in general, but he, if push comes to shove, he'll root for whoever Metallica roots for.
Well, I guess that's as good as
Yeah.
choosing method as any.
I guess. Well, and the Metallica was in the parade for the Giants like the day after, so that made him happy because he got to see pictures.
Nice.
But one of my favorite spots, which we only went into a couple of times and only once during the night, was a club called the Tube, which was all themed to London and the Tube, the London Underground. The carpet looked like the subway map, and they have like the bars with the straps to hold on to. And
wow.
there's these cool looking chairs, and they had a stage, so if, like, they had like a magician on board or a ventriloquist, and they could perform up there. And up on the stage on each side, they had they were red, unfortunately, because they were London or English telephone boxes. So that was very. I want to take all of this decor home because it's all English and British and yummy UK stuff. I'm like, I want to bring this home. So, but we went in there. We went in there the night that they were having their Halloween celebrations, which actually wasn't on Halloween. It was actually the night before because they had other stuff planned. Weird, I know, but Disney's got a way. They have a way of doing things on the first night and the last night, and the last night happened to be Halloween, and just because it was Halloween, they weren't going to divert from the usual last night of the cruise programming. So they did a Halloween stuff the night before and then earlier in the week. But we did go into the Tube to watch the adults costume contest. And most of it was Disney themed costumes, but there was one gal wearing a TARDIS dress that I think she made. It was like she had the like a steampunk type look to it, where it had the bodice, the corset, and it had the police telephone box with the blue, and then this large billowy skirt. But the skirt on the front, it had these two panels that kind of folded up and were pinned in place. And it behind those panels, it was an image of the console room from the TARDIS. So it was very cool. The costume people were waiting as we were walking in. They were waiting to get judged, and I saw her, and I'm like, winner! I don't care. I'm not a judge. I call winner. And I saw one gal dressed as the 11th Doctor. And then actually the gal in the TARDIS dress did get pulled up as a finalist in her category for most unique costume. And the guy hosting was all like, who are you? Where are you from? He's like, what are you dressed as? And she's like, the TARDIS from Doctor Who. And it's like, me and like two other people cheered. Apparently not a lot of Whovians. in the crowd.
It's kind of like when I was at the Doctor Who panel at Comic-Con and Colin Baker and Paul McGann were talking about Big Finish, and there was like me and maybe 3 other people who were like,
Yeah.
yay, Big Finish, and everyone else was like, what the heck is that?
Yeah. Like, we're in the minority, but we're strong. But that was fun. We didn't end up dressing up. We decided to opt to wear our regular dinner clothes for that. I did give them the option to rewear our Halloween costume because I seriously thought we could have got pulled in as a finalist in at least one of the categories, and but they didn't want to, so their loss. But obviously, you go on a cruise, and besides the food, the other big draw is being able to go places. And in our case, we were on the Western Caribbean itinerary with stops at Cozumel, Mexico, Grand Cayman, Falmouth, Jamaica, and Castaway Cay, which is Disney's private island. Our first stop was Cozumel, which I had been to Cozumel and Grand Cayman before on my very first cruise, which wasn't a Disney cruise. It was Carnival. So when we got to Cozumel, I was like, I don't want to get off. We hadn't planned any excursions for Cozumel or Grand Cayman, just due to scheduling things. But I was like, I don't want to get off at Cozumel. It's just cheap touristy stuff, and they're going to be bothering you to buy things and all that. And of course, my husband and my in-laws, they'd never been there before. Like, well, we want to get off and at least say that we got to, visit Cozumel. And I was like, okay, fine, whatever, go. And then they came back and they're like, yeah, you were right. No, no offense to the folks, the people there that are selling their stuff. They're just trying to make a living. But some of these places, they're pushy. When you're walking by places of business that are selling goods, and Cozumel is one of those places where they are pushy. So you have to be prepared to say no a lot if you're not interested in buying anything. But my husband, he took some pictures of some strange sculptures. There's one of like a kid playing leapfrog over another kid. It looks weird. I'll post pictures of that too. Some strange art in Mexico. So they weren't off the ship for very long. And in Cozumel, and then our next stop was Grand Cayman. And I did get off at Grand Cayman. We all did for a couple of hours because my in-laws had a couples massage in the spa. That we had gifted them for Christmas, and we're finally cashing it in. So it's funny because my husband took a picture of them before pre-massage, and they're smiling like, hey, we're gonna get massages. But then he took a picture of them after they were done, and they were just all like putty, like, I'm so relaxed, so relaxed. So all that tension was like, what stress, what job, what family issues, all gone.
Life.
Exactly. So, but we did get off at Grand Cayman and just walked around. Somehow my husband and I got outnumbered 3-1, but they decided that they wanted to go off the beaten path and off the main drag where all the shopping is and go the next street over. And I'm like, really? We're going to be away from the ship. We have no phones, no way to call for help. I'm like, you really want to do this? And I'm like, oh, it'll be fine. Which it ended up being fine. I with a group of 4 people and 2 of them large males, for the most part, I think we would have been fine. I wouldn't recommend it if you're like a group of females. Although during the day, it's probably not too bad, but I was a little nervous. Although we did see some interesting things and some not so interesting. We saw some churches. which was kind of cool. They drive. Grand Cayman is part of the British Commonwealth, so they drive on the left side of the road, which was a little disconcerting to see. Takes a little used to see cars going on the side of the road that you're not used to. But we saw some wild animals. We saw a horse that had been fenced up in somebody's yard. We saw a lot of chickens. A lot of chickens wandering around. I don't know why that is, but apparently wild chickens is a thing. But then we did get back onto the main drag and went to some of the shops. And actually we ended up getting lunch there on the island. We found this little hole in the wall that just sold like jerk chicken and jerk pork and some fish and stuff. It wasn't a real big menu, but it was reasonably priced. And we got a seat by the water and had authentic Grand Cayman Caribbean cooking, which was actually quite good. We had jerk pork and then some sort of fish dish, which I didn't touch the fish because I don't like seafood. But the jerk pork was really good. But apparently in the Caribbean, they also have this thing here in the States. We're used to, like, with fish and stuff, hush puppies. But in the Caribbean, they have something the ingredients are actually, it's closer to like an elephant ear. And they call it festival. It's called festival. But it's this real dense, like, doughy lump of, like, fried dough. But it's sweet because it's got a lot of sugar in it, but it's like flour and cornmeal and sugar and like some honey and salt and stuff too. And it's really good. So if you find yourself with a place that sells, you know, like Caribbean cooking and they offer the festival as like a side, do it because it's really good. But so that was a nice surprise. To, you know, it's like, why are we buying food when we can just go back to the ship that's already paid for? And like, well, I want to have something authentic. I'm like, okay, fine. And it ended up actually being a really good choice. So, and I can't think of the name of the place, but we took a picture of the sign, so I could post that too. So if you find yourself in Grand Cayman and want something to eat, I recommend. And the lady there, it was just one lady and like one guy cooking and like another guy running the place. It was real small. But, you know, we ordered our food and sat down, and she's like, do you need anything? And we hadn't paid yet. And she brought us our food, and we're like, do you want us to pay you now? And she's like, oh, no, just pay me whenever. It's fine. So just that, you know, the people we did encounter, they were just so nice, and especially these people at this little restaurant. They were just very laid back, that island way of living that you think of, where people are just like, oh yeah, whatever, life is good. You know, it was that kind of thing, which that was real pleasant. But then we went to, our next stop was Jamaica, Falmouth, Jamaica, which Falmouth as a port is fairly new. It's the fourth port that they have in Jamaica. And it's on the north side of the island. And Falmouth itself used to be the capital, but they had economic hardships, and it's kind of gone to ruin, unfortunately. It doesn't look very nice, but everyone that we met, though, was really nice. So I think it's one of those where it's like, you know, if you saw houses and stuff like that here in the States, you'd be like, oh, that's probably a rough neighborhood. You may not want to go there. But I think in this case, it's not so much that it's a rough neighborhood. It's more that that's just not a priority, that like their houses need to look like something from a postcard. You know, it's a roof over their head and a place to keep their stuff. If the town maybe had some economic help, it may look a little nicer, but, you know, for the most part, I thought it was one of the nicest places we stopped at, personally. But we actually did an actual excursion this time, which took us to about 25 minutes inland to the Good Hope Estate, which used to be back in the 1700s. It was a sugar plantation. And the guy that owned it, obviously back in the 1700s and all that, the people working the fields were slaves. But this guy in particular, though, was like, as far as being a slave owner, was a really nice slave owner. He made sure that if the slaves had families, that they got to stay together and live together. He built a hospital for all of his workers to get medical help, and then he ended up building a second, like, hospital type building for pregnant and expecting women so that they could get proper prenatal and like OBGYN care, and a place that they could safely give birth with clean water and all that. Our excursion took us on a tour of the estate in a horse and buggy, or horse and carriage, which was actually quite cool. And I guess two of the horses that worked there on the estate were horses that had been in Pirates of the Caribbean in the movie, which was kind of cool. They didn't tell us exactly which ones. Apparently one of the horses, though, is no longer there and unfortunately passed away earlier this year due to a heart attack. But one of the other horses was in Pirates of the Caribbean. So that's kind of cool. I don't know if it was either one of the horses we had that pulled our carriage, but they took us around the grounds of the estate and pointed out, this is where, they showed us the ruins of the mill that they used to process the sugar cane and all that. They also processed limestone. So they had an old kiln that was still standing that they would use to process the limestone. And then they took us up to the house that was that belonged to the guy that originally owned land. And the house is at the top of the hill, 600 feet above sea level. Our driver said that that's the only legal high you can get in Jamaica. And if you don't get that, well, I'm not going to explain it to you. Bob Marley, everybody, Bob Marley. But that we got to the top of the hill, and we were waiting for our tour guide to give us the tour of the house itself, and we came out under the lawn. And the front of the house has this front lawn that overlooks towards the Blue Mountains, which are some of the most famous mountains in Jamaica. That's where Blue Mountain coffee comes from, which is the coffee that's served on Air Force One. It has been since like Kennedy was president. But just, we get to the top of this hill and we go out into the lawn with our backs to the house, and you're looking out, and oh, the view, absolutely gorgeous. It's the most amazing. I'm not like an outdoorsy person normally. My husband's all like, oh, look at the trees, the leaves are changing, or look at that sunset, and I'm like, whatever. But this took my breath away, this view. It was absolutely gorgeous, like this green, just greens that I didn't think actually existed in real life, and the sky was just so blue with these white puffy clouds, and every now and then a bird would fly by. Oh, it was just absolutely gorgeous. But the guy that originally owned the land, apparently he did something for the Jamaica used to be part of the British Commonwealth, so they also drive on the other side of the road, but they're their own country now. But back in the day when they were part of England, I guess the guy did something for the king, or did like a good service for the King of England or something. So the king told him, go and I will give you as much land as you can see with your eyes. So the guy went to the top of this hill, and it was like, looked out the same view that we were looking at. He's like, I will take all that. And it ended up being like 1,000 acres of land. And then they ended up doubling it and giving him it grew to 2,000 acres. And I'm like, good thing it wasn't a cloudy day, otherwise he would have got shorted. Just absolutely beautiful. I've posted a few pictures on my Facebook. I'll post pictures more pictures on the blog. But they took us a tour of the house itself, which the house has been there since the mid 1700s, and they've had to do some refurbishments to keep it up and standing, but a lot of it was still original. When you first go in the house, in the entryway, the floor the hardwood floor was original to the house. It was made out of orange wood, which apparently you can't get anymore. It's extinct. But it was amazing because the floorboards back in the day when they put them in, they put in this wood flooring, but they didn't use like nails or anything. They used wood pegs to keep the boards in place, and those were still there. So you have this like almost 300-year-old flooring, and they'd never refinished it or anything, and it looked like it was brand new, even though it was so old. And a lot of the furniture was original. The roof was original. They took us to one of the parlors, and you could see the roof better. And the roof is made of cedar. And if you look up at the roof, you see holes in the roof, and you're like, well, if it rains, isn't it going to leak? But the thing is, with cedar, when it gets wet, it expands. So anytime it rains, the wood expands and fills in those holes. And then when it dries, it contracts again and allows air to circulate. So
that's clever.
That I know, isn't it? But the
one thing I know about cedar is it smells nice.
Yeah, it's all that too.
They make hope chests out of it.
Yeah. But a lot of the furniture was original. They had art that dated back several hundred years. Apparently, they had the picture up on the wall a couple of years ago. Apparently, Prince Harry visited this the same spot for something, conservation or something. I'm not entirely sure. It was like, oh, I'm standing in the same place that British Royal did. Go me. But they showed us around the house. The bedrooms, the bathroom. The guy that owned the house. It was a gift from his father as a wedding gift when he got married to this woman named Elizabeth, who came from England. And the guy was like, as my mom said as we were telling her about this, she's like, kind of sounds like Chauncey. This guy was kind of ingenuitive. He had been, as he got older, he was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis, and they recommended hot baths. But you didn't have indoor plumbing then, especially not heated indoor plumbing. So he came up with this idea to collect rainwater in a boiler and with copper pipes, and built himself a tub that was big enough for him, because this guy was like 6'6", and created this big long bathtub with this boiler so he could boil rainwater and get hot water. So he essentially had indoor plumbing, and apparently it caught on, and eventually most of the island had indoor running water before New York City did.
Wow.
Yeah. The only unfortunate thing is he used copper pipe, and his tub was made out of lead. So he ended up getting lead poisoning and ended up killing him. But other than that, it was very ingenious. His little
There's always a flaw somewhere, you know.
But and apparently Martha Stewart has visited this estate as well before she went to jail, according to our tour guide. Because the kitchen is still standing. Obviously, it's been updated, but the kitchen is still standing. But apparently, Martha Stewart came visiting and cooked in their kitchen at some point. But before she went to jail, she made sure to emphasize that before she went to jail. But they toured us, the house. The house actually itself isn't that large. A couple bedrooms, couple bathrooms. The living room type area. The kitchen is its own building, and it's actually a usable kitchen, so we couldn't go in there. But then they do have a separate building in the backyard, which was the money house. It was considered bad luck since they didn't have banks, people had all their money, at their home, but it was considered bad luck to count your money in your home. So he built a separate building that was his kind of office, but they called it the money house, but it's been converted to a honeymoon suite now. So they'll host weddings, and then the bride and groom could stay in this one single building for their honeymoon. And it has running water and all that, and not a lead-lined bathtub. And a pool. They have a pool, too. And I saw a cat. Walking around the grounds as well. But one of the most interesting things is there's another building that the house itself sits above the ground, like a story up above the ground. You have to go up these steps to get up into the house proper. It's on this huge foundation. But on ground level is another small standalone building, and the gentleman, totally blanking on his name, but his young wife, that they got the house as a wedding gift, she died of, they think, either yellow fever or something like that, something that was common during that time. But because he loved her so much, and the house, was her home, and, their wedding, the place that they lived as a married couple, that to honor her, he buried her in the house, in this room. So you can go into this room, and it's just concrete floor, but off in the corner is a piece of concrete that's got her name and like the date of birth and date of death and some nice inscription in it, and she's buried there underneath the concrete, which is a bit disturbing, but she's there, or what's left of her, I guess, at this point. So that was a bit morbid, but interesting at the same time. But that was pretty much the tour, which it's kind of the crown jewel of the entire estate is this house. But then the rest of the grounds, since it's not a working sugar plantation anymore, although they do sell, or they do grow fruits like oranges and limes and stuff, and apparently they sell some of their produce to Tropicana. So if you ever have Tropicana orange juice, it may contain oranges from that particular spot in Jamaica. But they've converted the grounds to other stuff to do. There's another pool that people can go swimming. They have a bird aviary, which we got to tour, which was really cool. I saw some beautiful birds and a very, very large iguana that apparently has a bad temper, so I didn't get too close. And they have zip lines. You can do zip lining. They do a zip line tour. There's a river that runs through it. They'll take people tubing or kayaking on the river. They do ATV and four-wheel tours as well. So we could easily, if we do another cruise that stops here, we could go to the same spot, the Good Hope, playing, estate, but do something different, which was kind of cool. Which we didn't know that really going into it, but after seeing it, I was like, yeah, we could come here again and do like the ATVs or the zip lining or something. So that was kind of cool. And then our other stop was Castaway Cay, which is Disney's private island, which always is the highlight of the trip. For the longest time, Disney was the only cruise line that had their own island, but some other cruise lines have jumped in the game and have gotten their own island, but still Disney is the only one that can dock at their island. They built a pier big enough that any other ships can dock there. But they can only do one ship at a time. So the nice thing about going to Castaway Cay is the maximum number of people that could be on the island as far as guests go are the people that are on the ship. So you're not having, unlike other places where you can have multiple ships dock there, it's just one ship. So however full your ship is how full the island is. But my husband and I decided to be wild and crazy and run the Castaway Cay 5K. First thing in the morning. Like, I'm on vacation. What am I doing running a 5K? But we did it. I mostly walked, which is walking and jogging really quickly, or walking really quickly. Kind of like the old people you see in the mall. If you go to the mall first thing in the morning, old folks doing laps in the mall. That was the way I did most of it. I didn't really run. But we got medals for finishing, and we finished under an hour, which I'm actually quite impressed considering how hot it was, even that early in the morning. But we ended up going to Serenity Bay, which is the adult beach, which was so nice. I mean, we went out into the ocean for a little bit, and got all wet and cooled off and all that. But then I plopped down on a beach chair and I took a nap, and it was so nice. I will. I've told somebody else this too, but if you know me, I am not. When it comes to vacations, I am not a sit and relax type of person. For the most part, I want to be off doing stuff. Either, if I'm someplace and there's history to learn or stuff to see or places to eat or whatever, I want to be doing that. I don't want to be sitting on my butt just watching the world to go by. But there is something about these cruises that makes me want to do that. Either sitting in the hot tub or being on the adult beach at Castaway Cay, I have no problem just sitting there, dozing off, listening to the sound of the waves, and just soaking up the sun. It is so relaxing. I don't know if it's just because it's, you visit Castaway Cay towards the end of your cruise, so it's been a long week and you're just kind of tuckered out to begin with, or you ran a 5K because you're crazy like me, or or whatever. But it was just, absolutely wonderful. And then we got lunch. They feed you on the island, not just on the ship, and it's included. And then we decided to go snorkeling, which I missed out on snorkeling last time because I ended up with a migraine, which really sucked. So this time I was like, I'm going to go snorkeling. So we ended up renting some snorkeling gear, and they've got a lagoon that's specifically for snorkeling. And what Disney has done is in this lagoon, you swim out far enough, and they have taken objects and plop them in the water to, one, start building an artificial reef, which gives a place for, the fish and stuff to live, but then it also gives you stuff to look at while you're snorkeling. And some of it's like, they've taken like old, well, I don't know if they're old, but they've taken like giant pots and plop them in the water, and really large anchors. There's a few of those. There's a statue of Mickey Mouse, a couple of them actually. But a statue of Mickey Mouse and a statue of Minnie Mouse that are in the water. There's a ship that kind of looks like the ship from Gilligan's Island actually, but on the smaller side. But they've sunk that as well. But one of my favorite things that I absolutely wanted to see, and you got to swim out there to see it. But once you do, the payoff is worth it. But it is one of the Nautilus ride vehicles from the old 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea ride that used to be at Walt Disney World. They used to have an attraction that was, if you're familiar with Captain Nemo and 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, the old Disney movie, Nemo's got this ship called the Nautilus, and it's kind of a steampunk looking type of thing. It's real long, and it's all spiky and hard, hammered metal and all this. And they had a ride at Disney World. They still have it at Disneyland, but it's themed to Finding Nemo now. I won't get into that. But the one at Walt Disney World closed years ago. But they took one of the ride vehicles, took it to Castaway Cay, and plopped it in the water. And it's there. It's on the bottom. It's slightly on its side because my mother-in-law is like, it doesn't look right. I'm like, well, I think it's laying upside down because of the fin. it wouldn't be able to lay properly because it's got this long fin. But I mean, this thing is huge. I remember riding this ride as a kid when I went to Disney, back when I was like a preteen. So I remember riding this attraction, and to see that was just that I was like, that is the coolest thing I've seen like all day, maybe all week. And the way it's sitting is the lagoon itself. It's kind of deep, and if you're snorkeling, you'd have to really dive to get to the bottom. But the Nautilus, it's so large, and the way it's sitting is there's a fin that sticks up, and you can stand on it because it sits so high. And I swam over to it, and I stood on it, and I'm like, holy crap! I'm standing on the fin of the Nautilus in the middle of the Caribbean. This is the coolest thing ever. and we saw lots of fish. There was these one fish. I have no idea what type of fish they are. I still need to Google it and try and find out. But there's these one types of fish that apparently found my husband really attractive, and they kept schooling around him.
And you're sitting there going, yes, fishies, I know what you mean.
Yeah. Kind of. But we saw other types of fish too. I saw really tiny fish, like little minnow type fish, and we saw a lionfish, which apparently they're actually quite poisonous. But it was all the way at the bottom, so unless it decided to come after us, we left it alone. It left us alone, so that's good. You don't have to worry about like sharks or anything. I don't know exactly what Disney does, but they're able to keep like sharks and really dangerous stuff away from these swimming areas, which is nice. Although people have claimed they've seen a barracuda in the snorkeling lagoon, but it's like one barracuda. But like you don't see sharks or manta rays or anything like that. It's just fish. Granted, it was a lot of fish, especially if you were near my husband. It was a lot of fish. So I mean, it's perfectly safe to go into the water there, which is awesome. It's very, very salty. I swallowed quite a bit of water. I'm pretty sure I maxed out my daily sodium intake after being in the water. And my hair was a mess. With all the salt water and having the scuba mask on, man, my hair was just a hot mess by the time we were done. But I didn't care. But Castaway Cay is always a highlight. We always look forward to going. It's just unfortunate that it's always at the end of your cruise. So if you're at Castaway Cay, your cruise is almost over. But other than that, it's always a fun thing to go. And they've got other stuff too to do. They've got, you can rent jet skis or kayaks. They've got a teen beach. So, if you got a teenager, send them off to the teen beach, and they'll be with their friends, and they can be as loud and obnoxious as they want, and it's not going to harm anyone. You can go to the adult beach, and it's nice and quiet. You can go to the family beach if you've got little ones, and they've got spots for them to play. They've got a splash area for the little kids. So if they want to play in the water but not necessarily want to get in the ocean, they can. They've got a couple of water slides. You can rent bikes. They've got some trails. You can ride a bicycle and go down these trails, which we did on our last cruise, but we didn't on this one just because we were so exhausted after doing the 5K and all that. And there's on one of the paths, there's a lookout tower that goes like 4 stories up in the air, and you can see all the way around the island. Most of the island is still not developed. They only developed what they needed, and they're leaving the rest of it undeveloped for conservation purposes, which is good. And then there's occasionally you'll see characters. So you still got character photo ops. Just lots to do, or you can do as little as you want on Castaway Cay, which is nice. But then that was our last night. And that was our last day, so we had to come home the next day, unfortunately. But we still didn't. I mean, this was a 7-night cruise. Our last one was a 4-night, and we barely scratched the surface. And this time, even with it being 7 nights, we still barely scratched the surface on what there was to do. I mean, there was still things to eat that we didn't get to eat. We didn't.
Things to see.
I know, people to see, and I mean the shows. They've got all sorts of shows. They've got entertainment on board. There's almost always a show every night in the one main theater. They do Broadway type shows. I mean, they're shortened versions, but they are Broadway caliber shows with the sets and the singing and the dancing and the special effects and all that. Which I think my favorite was Aladdin. They did a version of which Aladdin actually is on Broadway at the moment, but then they also have a version of Aladdin that they do at Disneyland, and I think the version on the ship is actually closer to what they do in Disneyland. But the genie, absolutely hilarious, absolutely hilarious. The person who plays the genie kind of gets carte blanche as far as his lines go. So there's room for improv, and he'll throw in like pop culture references, and like when he's telling Aladdin about the three, his 3 wishes, and he's like, these are the rules. You can't wish for more wishes. I can't raise the dead. I can't make someone fall in love with you. And the genie's all like, I tried that with Miley and Liam. She came in like a wrecking ball. He ran off to the Hunger Games. So.
Oh, I need to go on this cruise now just to see that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So. Highlight. Big highlight. So that's always entertaining. It's entertaining. They'll bring entertainers on board. We saw a show one night, which was just for the adults. It was a couple of guys that call themselves Bucket and Boards, and what they do is kind of a variety type thing. But their biggest thing is that they do like music and rhythm on different types of items, kind of like the Blue Man Group, except they actually talk and they're not blue. But they'll hammer, they'll use drumsticks on like giant barrels, or paint buckets, or both of the guys tap dance, and they play guitar, and they did like parody type songs, and made like pop culture references and stuff. It was for adults. They made a couple of jokes that were funny for the adults. It probably would have gone over little kids' heads if they'd heard it. So it wasn't dirty. I mean, it's still Disney. They're never, even the adult stuff is not adults. It's just more content that would go over your kid's head, and your kid may find it a little boring type of adult. But those guys, they were utterly hilarious. I laughed and laughed and laughed and laughed. And then they had a ventriloquist on board that we caught the end of his show one night. And then, again, I think I'm barely scratching the surface on what all there is to do. I mean, there's 2 restaurants that you have to get reservations for that are adults only, which is great, if you want to have some time away from the kids and get a meal without the kids. Obviously, there's the swimming, there's a spa, there's a gym. If you want to get your workout in, there's a miniature golf course on deck. It's 9 holes, so it's half a course, but still, you can play miniature golf. They got ping pong, foosball, lots of places to lounge out in the sun and get a suntan. I've got somewhat of a tan, although I'm pretty sure it's going to be gone by Christmas. I didn't spend as much time out in the sun as I thought I would have. And if you want, even in your stateroom, if you just want to relax in your stateroom and kind of be away from everything, there's a TV in your stateroom, not a lot of channels. Most of it is, most of the news channels. You can get ABC, although most of the time that was blacked out, apparently due to international broadcasting restrictions. But they do have ESPN, because Disney does own ESPN. So if you're a sports fanatic, you're never at a loss there. And the sports bar was always showing whatever game. And I watched Game 6 of the World Series on the giant screen that is on the side of the funnel by the pool. They'll show Sunday Night Football, Monday Night Football, Thursday Night Football. They'll show most of the major NFL games. And then during the day, they'll show Disney movies. So you can be out there with your kids playing the pool and watch, Princess and the Frog, if that's what's showing. It's kind of cool, though, late at night watching Game 6, especially because the Royals kicked the Giants' rear end in Game 6. Sitting there eating like my mother-in-law came out and sat with me, and we were like eating hot dogs and french fries and watching baseball while out in the middle of the ocean. I'm like, this is surreal, man. And then they have, on your TV, they have on-demand movies. A lot of it's the Disney catalog, although they do some others. It usually changes depending on what's been released recently. I saw Divergent was available to watch, although I didn't watch it. I did watch the Lego Movie. So now I get what everybody's saying when they go, hey, everything is awesome. I totally get that now because I've seen it. And then there's an actual movie theater on board as well. And they'll show Disney movies. I got to see Guardians of the Galaxy again while on board, that was cool. And the movie does do both the movie theater and the main theater can show movies in 3D. Because we were sailing over Halloween, they showed The Nightmare Before Christmas one of the nights in the main theater and did it in 3D, and they did the sing-along version, so all the songs, they showed the lyrics up on the screen, which is cool. And then they put some 4D effects in there, like if something exploded, there was a puff of smoke, and they released confetti and from the ceiling and all that. And then they had Jack and Sally on board, so I got to meet Jack and Sally. Nice. Which was cool. And then Pirate Night is the other big thing. Almost all the itineraries have a Pirate Night. And they have a stage show with Mickey and his pals, and they're pirates, and they fight Captain Hook and all that. And then they do another one with Captain Jack Sparrow, where he's up to doing his thing like Captain Jack Sparrow does. But the show
talking to multiple iterations of himself.
Yeah, exactly. And he mentions things like, people, tried to kill me. Someone succeeded. I ran into an old flame who apparently likes to dress in men's clothing. They reference the movies, so they keep it all canon as best they can. But the show with Captain Jack Sparrow, what that does is that leads into the fireworks. And Disney is the only cruise line that does fireworks at sea. And it is...
Wow.
It's awesome. I mean, they're not like the fireworks like you'd see in the park, because I don't think they could legally keep that kind of pyro on the ship. But it's still pretty cool what they're capable of doing when being in the middle of the ocean. And then they fireworks go off with music from the Pirates soundtrack and all that. So that's always a highlight as well. Weather permitting, of course. We were very fortunate with the weather this entire trip, that it was nice pretty much every day. The last night going from Castaway Cay back to Port Canaveral, we hit some nasty weather, and it was quite rough, but for the most part, it was wonderful, wonderful weather, which of course you can't predict that or change it. That's the one thing that Disney doesn't have control over, at least at the moment. I'm sure they're working on it. Is the weather.
They're getting their Imagineers on that one.
Yeah. But, man, I don't know what else to say. Meeting Anna and Elsa was fun. Their Anna was pretty spot on. It was so funny actually because the meet with Anna and Elsa was in the morning in one of the restaurants that was closed during the day, and they had a backdrop up with the snow and all that, and a shot of Elsa's ice palace, and they were the restaurant's got screens in it, so they were showing snow scenes and playing music from Frozen and all that. But there's a family in front of us with a little girl and a little boy, and the little boy probably was like 1.5, and he would see Anna, and he kept jumping up and down, going, Anna, 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 Anna. And then it was finally their turn to go up and see Anna and Elsa, and suddenly he got all shy. I was like, oh, that's cute. But then the parents are like, go on, and he runs up to Anna and gives her the biggest hug in the entire world. And then they let go, and she's like, and he proceeds to turn around and starts to walk away. Like, okay, I've got my hug now. My life is complete. I'm going to see you later.
When you're that age, your needs are simple.
Yes. But Anna was all like, well, aren't you going to give my sister a hug? And he wanted nothing to do with Elsa. So Elsa may be popular, but not with everybody. But yeah, it was adorable. They finally convinced him to give Elsa a hug and take a picture. So, but they were the Anna and Elsa. They were fun to talk to. The Anna, she was pretty spot on as far as Anna goes, and I talked to Anna actually more than Elsa. But they had the facial expressions and the poses they were so Anna and Elsa. Like, all they needed was Olaf or Sven, and we would have been golden. To figure out how to way to get either a snowman or a reindeer on a cruise ship, I guess. But so that was fun as well. I didn't really do a whole lot of character interactions. I saw Anna and Elsa, and I did the princesses, which with when I did the princesses, it was Cinderella, Ariel, Tiana, and Jasmine. So I got my picture with all of them, but I really didn't do any characters other than that. Well, Jack and Sally. But then I think that's about it. Like I said, that's what we did, but that's not everything you can do. Which is why we're planning another one.
Seems like you almost have to.
You do.
Go back and catch all the stuff that you missed the first time around.
Yeah. Well, and this one we're planning now is actually on a completely different ship, so it'll be, doing new stuff on a different ship. So the list of things to do is going to get even longer because it's a different ship. So, but that's so worth it, though. But unfortunately, the vacation had to end, and I'm home now, obviously. But the memories, and I'm pretty sure the calories will last a lifetime. Nice to know that I recovered enough from my gallbladder surgery that I could enjoy the food. Not as much as I would have liked, but I was still able to enjoy it.
Well, at least there's that.
Yes. That was my motivation when the gallbladder thing happened. They were like, oh yeah, it could take like up to 6 weeks to get fully recovered. And at the time, I was like 7 weeks from the cruise. I'm like, let's start this thing so I can start recovering. I got a cruise to go on. So, and thankfully, you know, I felt, you know, well enough to go. I'm very, very tired now, and I was getting tired. I was more tired than I would have, all things considering, if I'd been perfectly healthy, but I'm very fortunate that I was well enough to be able to do this. So, you know, thank goodness for that. But
Yep.
I don't think I have anything else to say, really. Stay tuned for photos and pictures, I guess, up on the blog and all that. I'll post as I can. Like I said, my mother-in-law has most of the pictures, so from her camera. So once those are available, I can post some of that stuff. But obviously, you guys are only know what I'm talking about from what I've talked about. Does anybody have any questions?
I just want to go on a Disney cruise.
I know. That's how I am. I'm like, can I
I've
get
never
a
even
ticket
been on
now?
a cruise in my life, and I'm like, dude, that's the one I want to go on.
Cruising in general is a very different way of vacationing, but is a very good way to vacation. Because I mean, you could be as inactive or as active as you want.
I know, it's like,
I mean, 'cause all of it is you're doing it on a boat.
I want to go on some sort of cruise, like, for my honeymoon.
Mhm.
If I, like, once I meet the right person and get married, that I'd want to go on a cruise.
Yeah, that's kind of a key thing.
Yeah.
So there's the whole meeting and the
Getting married and all that.
yeah, but yeah,
That's a different podcast.
yeah.
Well, you know, if the opportunity ever
Dating anyone right now.
Yeah.
Although there was one guy at school that I kind of like.
Ooh.
Oh boy. Yeah, a cruise would be
A cruise
a
would
lot
be
of fun, and I was actually talking to a friend of mine, and we were just, you know, batting back and forth, you know, vacation ideas, and I'm like, you know what, Disneyland would be such a cool honeymoon, and she was like, oh no, you don't want to do that, because, you know, and I was like, why not?
the crowd and
Well, I want to go. I mean, I want to go. I want to get the little Mickey ears that say bride and groom. And because I'm just that way. But you know, a Disney cruise, that would be like the best of both worlds.
Yeah, a good
Mhm.
compromise.
Yeah.
I totally agree with you.
Yeah, well,
And the thing is, Disney, you know, you think Disney and you think, oh, families, little kids, and, you know, obviously the parks are their own animal. But as far as the cruise goes, you can go without seeing children a good chunk of the time. I know that's something that people have asked, you know, and asked me before, is like, aren't there kids running around everywhere? I'm like, only if you go where kids are allowed to run around everywhere. Otherwise, they're pretty contained. You either at the family pool, or if you happen to go by the deck where the kids clubs are, that's where you're going to see the largest throng of kids. Or unless there's a character out doing a meet and greet, you may see throngs of children then. But for the most part, it's like a kid here or there, but it's not large groups of children.
Thing is, with me, I would be right there in line with them to meet the characters.
Well, yeah, me too.
yeah, me too.
But yeah, so that, I mean, it just sounds like a really, and then you got to see, like you were there in Mexico and Jamaica and
Mm-hmm.
and all those other places, so you know you get to see all these different things. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what kind of questions to ask, but it just sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And if you're not in,
And everything, like you said, like, you know how they have the movie theater, or you could watch, you know, TV or whatever, everything is 100% more cooler because you're on a boat
Mm-hmm.
doing all these things.
It's like, I'm watching a movie in 3D on a boat. I'm playing miniature golf on a boat. I'm running on a treadmill on a boat. I'm eating steak on a boat.
Although, from the sound of it, seems like it can get, like, the cost, like, say it's all-inclusive, but
Mhm.
the all-inclusive price sounds like it's probably quite expensive.
It can be. A lot of it depends on, one, how long the cruise is. You know, a 4-day is going to be cheaper than a 7-day, obviously.
Yeah.
The time of year makes a difference as well. We went
So
late
the
October.
fall,
Yeah.
like, is this a cheaper time of year or what?
Yeah, if you go in like winter or fall, that's going to be cheaper, especially fall because that's still hurricane season.
Oh.
Thankfully, there were no hurricanes. Not even a risk of one. But that is something to take into account the time of year. You know, you're going to pay a little less, but there is the risk of it being hurricane season.
So if a hurricane had, I mean, I'm guessing you booked this quite far in advance.
Yes.
And so, like, what if there had been a threat of a hurricane? Would they have like canceled it and refunded your money, or do they have a no refund thing, or
It
just depends?
It depends. I mean, usually things like hurricanes, they can see the potential to form probably a week or two ahead of time. If they can get out of the port, the cruise will happen.
Okay.
What they will normally do is if there's severe weather, even if it's not a hurricane, but it's severe enough weather, they will change the route.
Oh, okay.
So instead of going to Mexico or Jamaica, they may take you to St. Thomas or something, or, you know, Key West or something that's a different route, but they know they can still port there. Or they may keep you out at sea, but take a different route. They can drive around these things if need be,
Yeah.
which is nice. But as long as the ship can leave even if there's a threat of bad weather, the cruise will happen. So if you're not comfortable with it and you decide to pull out that close to sailing, if you didn't buy some type of insurance that allows you to cancel for any reason, then you'd be out the money.
Okay.
But for the most part, bad weather isn't a concern. They have ways of getting around that. You know, if you booked an excursion ahead of time and they end up not porting there, they'll refund your money for that because that wasn't something you had any
Because if they change
control over.
If they change the route and you're not porting at a place, they
put money
Yeah,
down on something.
something
Yeah, you'll get your
that
money back.
makes sense.
So
Like I said, I've never been on a cruise, so I'm like,
yeah.
well, neither have I. My mom has, but
And these ships, they're so large and they're so state of the art that, I mean, I know my mother-in-law was concerned about possibly getting seasick, and you don't feel it. You really don't. So, I mean, I can get motion sick from things like the car and an airplane ride if it's rough, but the ship, even when we hit some kind of rough water, you really don't feel it.
Huh.
So, because they've got, all these
Like,
stabilizers
I've
and
seen,
stuff
like,
on there.
mighty
So.
ships, and they build in stuff to keep it more or less stable.
Yes.
oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you're prone to if you've ever been on like any sort of seafaring vessel or water vessel and you found yourself getting sick, then you probably want to do something for seasickness. But, I've been on other types of boats, and my mother-in-law had. I was like, well, you've been on smaller boats before. Do you have any problem then? She's like, no. I'm like, well, you should be fine.
You're not going to have a problem on this.
You're not going to have a problem on this. So you may still feel the rocking of the boat when you get off, like I still am, even though it's been over 24 hours since we got off the ship, I still feel like the ground is it's funny. We got off and we went straight to the airport and we had all this time to kill. So, we're getting on the airport Wi-Fi, like, okay, time to get reconnected, and how many emails are in my inbox? I had like 300 emails.
Wow.
Time to check Facebook, and we're sitting there on our laptop, and my husband and his dad were fine, but my mother-in-law and I, we're sitting there on a computer, and I'd lean over to her and like, who do I need to talk to at this airport to make them stop it moving? Because you get used to the movement of the boat, which is why you don't really feel anything. But the minute you get off the boat on solid land, it's like your inner ear needs to figure out that it needs to recalibrate or something. So I should be fine in a couple more days. It's gotten lesser and lesser as time goes on, but every now and then I'll be sitting here like, we're having an earthquake? Minor earthquake?
Like, nope, that's just you.
That's just me. You get your sea legs, and then you got to get your land legs back, and I haven't got my land legs back. Doesn't help that both of the plane ride home was rough too, so I got all shook up, but that's neither here nor there. So, and I guess the other thing is, if you're, you like the idea of cruising, but maybe like the Caribbean's not your thing, they do offer other itineraries. Right now, actually, the cruise that we're planning for a few years down the line is actually to Alaska. Is our next planned cruise.
My grandparents have been on Alaska cruises before.
I wasn't necessarily something I was really interested in before we started cruising, but after being on a couple of Disney cruises and just knowing how well they do their thing, that the idea of going to Alaska is a bit more appealing, especially because it'll be in summer. You can only go in the summer because that's when it's safest as far as icebergs and all that. Not going to recreate the Titanic.
That would be bad.
Yeah. But then they also do the Panama Canal, if you want to do
when in summer, because when you go, it's daylight a lot of the time.
That's what I've heard.
So, and I think my grandparents once went on this Alaska cruise around my grandpa's birthday, which is in June.
Mm-hmm.
And that's around the time when it's like 24-hour daylight.
That's what I've heard. I've heard it's sunshine most of the time. Because we were talking, started the initial planning of when we're thinking of going to Alaska and all that, and I said something about, the scenery may be a lot nicer, so we may want to get a room, if not one with a balcony, because this cruise and the one before it, we did an inside room. So there's no window or anything, but although on the Dream and the Fantasy, their inside rooms have a porthole above the bed, but instead of it being a window, because it's an inside stateroom, obviously, what they've done is there's a television screen in the porthole, and it gets the feed from the camera on the bridge. So whatever the captain is seeing, you can see in your porthole.
Cool.
So you still get some light, and you get to see what's going on outside, at least one view. And what they also do is you can sit there and watch the porthole, and every now and then a character will pop up on the screen. So you might see Aladdin go by on the magic carpet, or you may see the old Matt Carl from Up with his bunch of balloons come floating by, or one of the characters from Finding Nemo, like the starfish, will wash up and stick to the screen and kind of hang there and wave, and then she'll fall off. So, I said something about thinking about getting a room with a window or a balcony for when we go to Alaska, and my mother-in-law was like, oh no, there's so much daylight that when you try to go to bed, it'll be sunshine outside. So
Yeah, but I'm sure they have curtains on.
oh
those.
yeah, like blackout curtains probably.
Yeah.
So
So it shouldn't be a problem because you just, if you want to go to bed, you just pull the blackout curtains and it's dark.
yeah. So we'll see. We have a lot of time to plan. So this is several years out down the road, because we're hoping a lot more family get to go on the Alaskan one. So we're pushing it out far enough that people that have plenty of time to plan. So which will be fun. Or if it's just the same four of us again, it should still be a blast. So I'm looking forward to that. And then, like I said, they do the Panama Canal both ways. So if you ever wanted to see the Panama Canal, you could do it that way. They do Hawaii. They do the Mediterranean. So
the Mediterranean one that I'm really interested in.
Yeah. And then they just
because there's a lot of history in that area that I am interested in.
Yeah. So they do like Spain and all that, and then they also now have an itinerary that goes along the Norwegian fords.
Ooh.
So if you want to go Norway, you could do that too. So if you wanted to live frozen, you could.
Hopefully without the actual getting frozen part.
Well, yes.
Yeah.
So there's
awesome.
plenty of options if going to the Bahamas is not your thing.
Water, so there's a lot of options for cruises in general.
Oh yes. And then there's rumors of them expanding to possibly Australia, New Zealand. We'll see if that actually happens.
Interesting area.
I would love to do Australia, New Zealand. So
yeah, same here.
So I'm sure that having to get a ship on the other side of the planet, I'm sure is a logistics nightmare. So probably not going to happen anytime soon. But that would be very interesting if it would be very interesting. I would be all for that. So yeah, that is pretty much it. At least until I have pictures.
We should somehow save up enough money and plan and have all five of us go on a cruise together.
Oh, yes.
Party on.
Disney would never be the same.
More donors on Patreon for that.
Yeah.
Yes, Patreon supporters. Donate so we can go on a cruise.
Yeah.
After we get a server and on iTunes.
Yes.
Yeah. On iTunes is the priority. Which, speaking of, in the general area of supporters, listeners, I went to this kickoff for National Novel Writing Month, and I handed out a couple business cards for our podcast.
Yay!
I have a couple listeners. Yay!
Yay, listeners!
Hello, NaNoWriMo listeners. I'm going to try to do it I've only ever done it once. Every year I'm like, yes, I'm going to do it again, and then I fall down. But this year I've actually got an idea.
Well, I wasn't sure I was going to do it, but then midway through October I got this really cool urban fantasy idea. So I'm seeing what I can do with that.
Cool.
I would want to. I have actually quite a few ideas that like original fiction and fan fiction. I just don't have the time to sit down and write.
Yeah. The thing is with NaNoWriMo is like it forces you to sit down and at least knock out 1,000 or 1,600 some odd words a day is about what it averages out to.
Yeah.
Or sometimes you do more and yeah. So it's and like the one I did, I hit the word count, but I still didn't finish it. and it's still sitting here on my computer unfinished, and it makes me sad. But it was like almost done. I just had to get to the end, and then. But yeah, it's one of those things that's really good. Like you have this idea, and you keep saying, "Oh, someday I'll write it." Well, someday is now. So.
Yep.
And actually, our library system, I heard at one point. I haven't heard anything since that they were going to do a big system-wide program with it, but I haven't heard anything definite. Maybe they're planning it for next year. I don't know. But anyway, so go NaNoWriMo. You're doing it.
Normal. There's NaNoWriMo in November, and there are camps in like April and June or July.
They pick all the short months to make it even more of a challenge.
Although with the camp NaNoWriMo, you can have a much smaller goal, word count goal, like 10,000 as opposed to 50,000.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and as they say, December is for editing.
Yeah.
You just write that sucker.
Taking a break. January is for editing.
Okay, January is for editing. Okay, December is for Christmas, January is for editing. Got it.
Exactly.
I think I'm just gonna pick my own month.
Or yeah, you could do that too. It's just started out as a way to challenge yourself.
NaNoWriMo is you have the support system of everyone else who's doing it. If
That
you
is
pick a
true.
month, there's not
I still get the pep talk emails from my region.
Yeah.
Oh. Maybe next year when I'm hopefully not moving, because it seems like I'm moving November. Like November is like moving, because I moved last November, and we're moving this November. Like
Yeah. So maybe you should try for one of the camp nanos in like April when you're not moving.
Yeah.
Try.
Give that a shot. Ease your way into it.
Yeah.
So like all these ideas running in my head, I just need a time. So this would be like a great time to like a challenge and all that. It's time. I hate time. Never have enough.
I know.
Timey-wimey.
Well, you never will. That's the thing you have to accept. All the things you want to do, like Rachel's cruise. There's all these things you want to do, but there's never enough time to do all of it.
Exactly.
So anyway. And speaking of time, it is getting away from us.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
So,
once again.
how'd you like that segue? So
nice.
all of our listeners, you can find all of our Facebook, Twitter, contact information at the 5-ish Fangirls podcast at blogspot.com. Do donate to Patreon if you can, and you feel so inclined. We appreciate all of the support we've gotten so far from all that. So thank you so much. And thank you for listening and hanging with us. October's kind of been a wild and crazy month, and but we're hopefully gonna be a little more back on track. Although November might not be much better, but
yeah,
that being
Thanksgiving
said,
and all that.
we're working through it. So we're still here. So don't give up on us.
Yeah.
We shall stick around for as long as you want us to. We'll keep plugging at it.
Yep.
So, and I would, at this point, mention what we're going to talk about next week, but I'm not entirely sure.
I was going to say, do we even have...
I don't think we decided yet.
Next week is the Doctor Who finale.
That's true.
We could talk about that.
Yep. I think we should.
All right. Group decision. Sounds good. Okay, next week.
Inside baseball on the air, so feel special, you guys. So if you do have feedback about the Doctor Who finale,
or the season in general,
or just any thoughts about the season, send them in, and we will read them on the podcast. And we'd love to hear what you think.
Alrighty then. Well, thanks to daylight savings, my body thinks it's later than my clock actually says. So,
My body still didn't get the memo that daylight savings ended.
Yeah.
I still don't feel like it. I guess we'll get over that.
Well, I came into daylight savings after changing my clocks twice on the cruise because we kept changing time zones. And they wanted us to stay on the same time, so regardless of what time zone we were in. So think how I feel. My body's really confused. Like, wait, am I on Mexico time? Am I on Jamaica time? What time is it?
No idea.
No, I don't.
All right.
Time to go to bed. That's what time it is.
That's exactly what time it is.
Yeah. So, all right. I think with that, we're going to sign off.
This is Brittany from Tawas saying goodnight.
This is Christy in Salt Lake City saying goodnight.
Mitch saying goodnight from Kitchener, Ontario.
And I am Rachel in Indianapolis, Indiana. Good night, everyone.
You have been listening to the Five-ish Fangirls podcast. Any and all movies, books, games, and other forms of media mentioned are owned and operated by their respective copyright holders. No copyright infringement is intended or implied.